Hello, my dear friends. Today, I want to share a very emotional story with you. Please listen with your heart, not only with your ears. This story is about a boy. The boy lived in an orphanage. Do you know what an orphanage is? It is a place for children who have no parents, no family, and no safe home. It is not like a real family house. It is only a place to stay, to eat, and to sleep. But the children there are still children. They want love. They want hugs. They want someone to call them, my son, or, my daughter. The boy in our story wanted all of these things too. His name was David. David's life was not easy. He was not rich. He was not strong. He was not happy. But his story is not only about sadness. His story is about hope. It is about kindness. It is about transformation. So, listen carefully. And as you listen, repeat some sentences after me. This will help you learn English and also help you feel the meaning of this story. Today you will learn English. Today you will learn life. David was small. He was thin. He had short brown hair and big soft eyes. His eyes looked like they were always asking something. They asked, why? Why me? Why am I here? David did not know his parents. He never saw their faces. He never heard their voices. He only knew the walls of the orphanage, the faces of the caretakers, and the sounds of many other children. But even without a family, David had dreams. He dreamed of love. He dreamed of freedom. He dreamed of someone holding his hand and saying, "You are special. You are mine." But nobody came. Nobody said those words. Day after day, David waited. Month after month, he hoped. Year after year, he believed. His life was full of waiting, but his heart was full of dreaming. Before I continue, let me invite you to repeat something. Say after me, his life was not easy. But his story is full of hope. One more time, his life was not easy. But his story is full of hope. These are not only words. They are the center of this story. They are also a lesson for you. Maybe your life is not easy. Maybe you also feel lonely. But remember, there is hope. Always. David's story is not just about him. It is about you. It is about me. It is about every person who has felt small, forgotten, or unloved. Together, let us go inside the orphanage and see David's world. The orphanage was not beautiful. It was not colorful. It was not warm. It was a large old building with gray walls. The windows were small. The lights were weak. The rooms were crowded. In one big room, there were many small beds, side by side. Each child had a bed, but no child had a family. There were caretakers. They gave food. They gave clothes. They tried to keep order. But they were busy. They were tired. They could not give each child special love. The food was enough to survive, but not enough to make children smile. The beds were a place to sleep, but not a place to dream. The orphanage was safe, but it was not home. David's life inside the orphanage was quiet. He did not run like the other children. He did not laugh loudly. He did not fight for toys or sweets. David was shy. He liked to sit near the window. He liked to watch the sky. He liked to look at the clouds and imagine stories. Sometimes he imagined a mother's smile. Sometimes he imagined a father's voice. But when the other children played games, David stayed alone. When they laughed, he only smiled a little. He wanted to join, but he felt different. He was shy. He was silent. He was waiting. Now let's practice English together. Please repeat after me. He was lonely. He was waiting. He was hoping. Again, he was lonely. He was waiting. He was hoping. These 3 short sentences tell David's life. They are simple. They are easy. But they are powerful. Say them slowly. Say them clearly. And when you say them, think about the meaning. Think about David sitting by the window. Think about his quiet face, his empty hands, and his full heart. Think about yourself. Have you ever felt lonely? Have you ever waited? Have you ever hoped? If yes, then you understand David. Paragraph 7. But David never gave up. Every night, before he slept, he whispered words to himself. He said, "One day, I will have a family. One day, I will not be alone. One day, someone will love me." These words were like a secret song. He repeated them again and again. They became his power. The orphanage gave him food. The orphanage gave him a bed. But his dreams gave him life. Without dreams, David could not continue. Without hope, he could not survive. Even when the nights were dark, his small light stayed alive inside. Every morning, when David walked to school with the other children from the orphanage, he saw something that made him sad. He saw children with their parents. He saw mothers fixing their children's jackets. He saw fathers holding little hands. He saw families laughing, walking together, sharing love. David watched from the side. His heart hurt. He asked himself again and again, why not me? Why don't I have a family? Why is my life so different? He could not understand. The world seemed full of families. But he was outside, always looking in. Sometimes David asked the caretakers, "Do you know my mother? Do you know my father?" But the caretakers shook their heads. They said, "We don't know, David. We don't know." These words made him sadder. He wanted answers, but there were none. Sometimes the other children laughed at him. They pointed and said, "You have no parents. You are alone." These words hurt deeply. They cut his heart like a knife. But David stayed silent. He did not fight. He did not shout. He only went back to the window, back to his dreams, back to his waiting. One evening, David was sitting alone in the corner. A boy came to him and asked, "Why don't you play with us?" David answered softly, "Because I feel different. I don't feel like I belong." The boy laughed and walked away. David stayed alone again. That was his life, silence, waiting, pain. But even then, he did not let go of hope. He whispered to himself, "Maybe tomorrow will be better. Maybe tomorrow someone will see me." His hope was small, like a tiny candle in a dark room. But the candle did not go out. The light was still there. Dear friend, let us pause here for a moment and think about David. Can you feel his sadness? Can you imagine his life in the orphanage? Every day he felt alone. Every day he saw other children with families. Every day he asked, "Why not me?" His life was full of questions, but no one had answers. And yet, David did not stop hoping. He never stopped waiting. He never stopped dreaming. Now, I want you to say these words with me, slowly and clearly. Say, "He was lonely. He was waiting. He was hoping." One more time, he was lonely. He was waiting. He was hoping. These words are simple English. They are also powerful life lessons. When you feel lonely, remember David. When you feel tired of waiting, remember David. When you think hope is too small, remember David. Because even a small light can survive in a dark room. Even a small hope can keep a child alive. And if David, a small boy with no parents, could keep hope alive, then you, my friend, can also keep your hope alive. Do not forget this. David's daily life followed the same routine. He woke up early in the morning when the bell rang. He washed his face with cold water. He ate simple food, bread, rice, sometimes a little soup. After breakfast, he walked to school with the other children from the orphanage. At school, he listened, wrote, and read. He was not the best student, but he was not the worst. He was quiet. Teachers sometimes forgot him because he never spoke loudly. After school, he came back to the orphanage. He helped clean the rooms. He folded his small blanket. He sat by the window and watched the sky. This was his world. Small. Simple. Lonely. The orphanage walls were strong and high. They kept him inside. But inside his heart, his world was different. His heart was full of dreams. His mind was full of stories. In his imagination, he had parents. In his imagination, he had love. He lived in two worlds at the same time, one outside, gray and cold, one inside, bright and warm. And this inner world saved him. This secret world gave him strength. One day, something small happened, but it changed everything for David. At school, there was a new volunteer teacher. She was young. She was kind. She smiled at every child. But when she looked at David, her smile stayed longer. She noticed his quiet eyes. She noticed his silence. After class, she walked to him and said, "Hello, David. How are you today?" No teacher had ever asked him like that before. David was surprised. His voice was soft when he answered, "I am fine." The teacher smiled again and gave him a small book. It was an old book, but to David, it felt like treasure. She said, "Read this when you have time. I think you will like it." David held the book with shaking hands. No one had ever given him a personal gift before. It was just a book, but to him, it was more than a book. It was a sign. It was kindness. It was hope. Paragraph 14. That night, David sat on his small bed with the book in his hands. He touched the cover again and again. He opened the pages slowly, carefully, like he was holding a piece of gold. The words inside were simple, but he read them with love. He read every page again and again. And while he read, he felt something new in his heart. He felt a spark. A small fire. He thought, someone saw me. Someone gave me something. Someone believes I can read, I can learn, I can grow. The book was not big. The book was not new. But the book carried something more powerful than paper and ink. The book carried kindness. The book carried hope. And hope, my dear friend, is the most powerful gift. Repeat this with me: one smile. One book. One word. It changed him. Again, one smile. One book. One word. It changed him. Simple English. Simple life. Powerful meaning. From that day, David was not the same. He began to read more. He wanted to learn. He wanted to grow. He wanted to change his life. Every evening, instead of sitting silently by the window, he sat with his book. He read, he dreamed, and he imagined a bigger world. He thought, maybe I can do something. Maybe I can become someone. The teacher's smile stayed in his memory. The gift of the book stayed in his hands. And the fire of hope stayed in his heart. Slowly, he began to believe in himself. Slowly, he began to see that even one act of kindness can open a door. And when a door opens, even a little, the light can come in. David's heart was opening. His world was changing. And it all started with one small gift, one small word, one small act of kindness. The next week, David met the teacher again. She asked, "Did you read the book?" David looked down shyly and said, "Yes, I read it." The teacher smiled warmly and said, "Good. I am proud of you. These simple words, "I am proud of you," were new for David. No one had ever said them to him before. He repeated them in his mind again and again. "I am proud of you. I am proud of you." They sounded like music. They sounded like love. David went back to the orphanage that day with a new feeling inside. He wanted to study more. He wanted to understand more. He wanted to read better. So every evening, he opened the book again. He tried to read every word clearly. Sometimes he did not understand, but he tried. Sometimes he felt tired, but he did not stop. The teacher's words were like wings for him. They lifted him up. They gave him power. At night, when he closed his eyes, he whispered to himself, "One smile. One book. One word. It changed me." Again, he whispered, "One smile. One book. One word. It changed me." These words became his new song, his new strength. Slowly, David began to transform. Before, he was quiet, shy, and hidden. Now, he started to raise his hand in class. He started to answer small questions. He started to look at people in the eye. His classmates noticed. The caretakers noticed. Even the other children at the orphanage noticed. They said, "David is different now. David is not so quiet." David himself felt different. He felt taller inside, even if his body was still small. He felt stronger inside, even if he had no parents. He started to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was not invisible. He was a person. He had value. He had dreams. He had hope. And most of all, he had power inside him to change. He thought, if one book can make me feel stronger, maybe 100 books can make me fly. If one kind word can change my day, maybe many kind words can change my life. His mind grew bigger. His heart grew warmer. His life began to transform. And he started to see the world not as a prison, but as a door waiting to open. David discovered something new, the English language. At school, there were English classes. Before, David did not care much. But now, he wanted to learn. He thought, if I learn English, I can speak to the world. If I learn English, I can make friends. If I learn English, I can find a new life. He began to study hard. He wrote words again and again. He repeated sentences loudly. He practiced even when other children laughed. Sometimes they said, "Why do you try so hard? Nobody cares." But David did not listen. He remembered the teacher's smile. He remembered the book. He remembered the words, "I am proud of you." He wanted to make her proud again. He wanted to make himself proud. At night, while others slept, David whispered English words into the dark. He said, "Hope. Family. Love. Change." These words became his dream. These words became his light. And every day, he grew stronger. Every day, his English grew. Every day, his hope grew. 1 year later, David's life looked different. He was still in the orphanage. He still had no parents. But inside, he was not the same boy. He was not only quiet and shy anymore. He was curious. He was learning. He was growing. At school, he started to get better marks. One day, the teacher asked him to read in front of the class. David's hands were shaking. His voice was soft. But he read every word clearly. When he finished, the class clapped. For the first time, David felt the sound of hands clapping for him. It was like a warm wave. It filled his heart. He smiled, a real, big smile. That night, in bed, he whispered, "Maybe I am not nothing. Maybe I am something. Maybe I can do something great." The other children saw his change too. Some of them even came and asked for his help with reading. David helped them. He shared what he learned. And in helping others, he felt even stronger. He felt like his life now had meaning. David's transformation was not sudden like magic. It was slow. It was step by step. But it was real. It started with one smile. It grew with one book. It grew stronger with one kind word. And then, it spread into his heart like fire. He became hungry for knowledge. He became brave with dreams. He became strong with hope. And now, he was not only surviving in the orphanage. He was living. He was growing. He was dreaming of a future. He told himself, I will not be a boy who only waits. I will be a boy who works, who learns, who changes. And every day, he walked closer to that dream. His story teaches us something simple but powerful: hope can begin with something small. One smile. One book. One word. That is enough to change a life. That is enough to transform a lonely boy into a hopeful boy, a shy boy into a brave boy, an orphan into a dreamer. My friend, remember this lesson. Remember David. And remember that your own small steps can also lead to big change. One special day arrived that David would never forget. At school, there was a small competition. The teacher said, each student will write a short story, and the best stories will be read in front of everyone. When David heard this, his heart started beating fast. He thought, can I do this? Can I write something? Can I show my heart? He was afraid, but he wanted to try. He sat with his little book, and he began to write. His words were simple, but they were full of feeling. He wrote about the sky, about hope, and about dreams. He wrote about being lonely but still waiting. He wrote about believing in tomorrow. When the teacher read his story, her eyes became soft. She smiled and said, "This is beautiful, David. You will read it to the class." David felt both fear and joy. On the day of the presentation, he stood in front of everyone. His hands were shaking. His voice was low at first. But as he read, his voice grew stronger. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then the children clapped. The teacher said, "Well done, David." And for the first time in his life, David felt truly seen. That small moment became a turning point. Something inside David changed forever. He thought, I can write. I can speak. I can be brave. His story was not just a piece of paper. It was a mirror of his heart, and others had listened. This gave him a new kind of power, the power of expression. Before, he had only kept his dreams inside. Now, he had found a way to share them. Every day after that, he started to write more. He wrote short stories. He wrote small poems. He wrote about his feelings, his dreams, and his fears. Writing became his new friend. Writing became his safe place. And when he wrote in English, he felt even closer to the world. He thought, if I write in English, maybe one day people in other countries can read my story. Maybe my voice can travel beyond these walls. And so, he studied harder. He read every English word he could find. He asked the teacher for more books. He repeated sentences out loud until they stayed in his memory. Slowly, his English grew stronger, and so did his belief in himself. The other children in the orphanage began to notice. They used to see David as the quiet boy in the corner. Now, they saw a boy who had ideas, a boy who had courage. Some of them came to him and said, "David, can you help me with homework?" He helped them. Others asked, "David, can you read us your story again?" He read with a smile. Slowly, David began to have friends. He was not always alone anymore. The children who once laughed at him now wanted to sit with him. They began to respect him. And in their eyes, David saw something new. He saw himself as a leader. He was no longer invisible. He was shining. The caretakers also noticed. They said, "David is growing. David is changing." And David felt it too. He thought, "I am not the same boy. I am not only waiting. I am living." This was a big change. It was not magic. It was the result of hope, kindness, and hard work. Dear friend, let me share something with you here. Sometimes in life, everything feels heavy. Sometimes, nothing seems to change. But remember this lesson from David: sometimes, one moment can change everything. One book can change a heart. One kind word can open a door. One chance to speak can build courage forever. David's life did not become perfect overnight. He was still in the orphanage. He was still without parents. But his heart had changed, and that made all the difference. Repeat this with me: sometimes, one moment can change a life. Say it again: sometimes, one moment can change a life. Let these words enter your heart. Because maybe, today, this story is your moment. Maybe, today, this story can change you. Now let us reflect on David's journey. His story is not only about being an orphan. His story is about courage. His story is about kindness. His story is about never giving up. The world may not give you everything you want. The world may take away people you love. The world may give you loneliness, pain, or fear. But like David, you can choose hope. You can choose to hold a dream. You can choose to believe that tomorrow can be better. David had nothing, no parents, no toys, no home of his own. But with one smile, one book, and one word, his life began to change. That is the power of small things. That is the power of kindness. And that is the power inside you too. Let us make this even more personal. Maybe you feel alone right now. Maybe you feel small or invisible, just like David once felt. Maybe you think nobody sees you. Maybe you think nobody cares. But listen to me carefully: you are enough. You are strong. You are valuable. Repeat after me: I am enough. I am strong. I am valuable. Again: I am enough. I am strong. I am valuable. These words are simple English, but they are also powerful life lessons. Believe them. Say them every day. Because if David, a boy with nothing, could transform his life with hope and learning, then you can too. This is the greater lesson of David's story. It is not about where you begin. It is about where you choose to go. David began in loneliness, but he chose hope. He began in silence, but he chose words. He began as invisible, but he chose to shine. Life is not about being perfect. Life is about being brave enough to keep moving, even when it is hard. And when you show kindness to someone, remember, you might be giving them their moment of change. You might be giving them their book, their smile, their hope. Never forget, you have the power to give hope, just as others gave hope to David.